I'm in the Army, see. You want to hear an Army story? Oh, you know, I'll tell you why the Army is such a great place to tell stories about. Because this is these circumstances in the raw. And they ain't all you see in the raw. See, a lot of things in the raw, and that's what this story's about, see. I'm in this company, and we're way down in the boondocks. We've been in these boondocks for 100 years. And the only excitement that we ever felt was once in a while you could hear an alligator off in the swamp calling for his mate. You ever heard an alligator calling for his mate? It's really thrilling. You're lying there in your sack, see, it's 2 in the morning. You hear the mosquitoes. And you hear the sound of your radar set. We had a radar set, see. That was what our company did. It was a radar company. And 24 hours a day, this radar set was going... And the big beaming arms would sweep over us. You'd hear them going past you in the night. Over your head it would go. And you hear the mosquitoes. And you hear the sound of this motor going. And our world was just one long sea of boredom. You know, have you ever been so bored you can taste it? Well, I'll tell you how boredom tastes. Have you ever put a nickel in your mouth? Yeah, put a nickel in your mouth and hold it there for about 3 minutes. That is the peculiarly acid, metallic taste of boredom. Tastes just like that. And after a while, you can sit there, you know, you can feel it. And the whole company is just sitting, see. And once in a while, somebody gets promoted to PFC. And that's a big day, see. We can all go down and watch him sew on his stripes. Give a little advice, you know, he's sewing on. That's a big moment. All right, you got the scene, and it's hot. Oh, boy, is it hot. The sun just lays up there 24 hours. It was even shining at night. Just a big, fat sun, just going... I can remember we would go out in the morning we would stand out there, we'd come running out of the tent, they're blowing the whistles, and boom! It'd hit you on the head and you'd sink. And we'd stand there in our shorts with our dog tags and our shoes, and Sergeant Kowalski would go up and down the line, calling the names, and you get, you know, the interesting thing about the Army, it gets to be a genuine ballet. You don't even hear your name anymore on the roll call, and he doesn't read it. He goes, hey, ho, wee, ha, ho, ha, hey, ha, hey, ha, hey, ha, ho. And when he hits your note, you go, ho. It's a fantastic ballet. Hey, ha, ho, and you hear all these other guys go, ho, hey, ho, ho, ha, ho, ho. And he can tell, see, there's tuned ears, you know. He can tell if a false note comes in. In other words, your buddy has gone AWOL and you holler, ho, he stops. He has to start from the top. He doesn't know, you know. He doesn't know where when he starts at the top again. He goes, hey, ha, ho, ha, ho, ha, ho, ho. And that's the kind of scene it is. It's just played out like a ballet, you know. We're hot and steamy. And oh, yes, one of the great pleasures of that company was scratching your heat rash. Oh, yeah, we all had heat rash, you know. And the heat rash, I had a case of heat rash, so help me, that started 3 feet above my head. Yeah, I could scratch up there, see? And I'd start working all the way down. And it would go down into the ground. About 1.5 feet, you know. Once in a while, I'd jump to the side, see? And I'd see it up there. It crawls down. And we were sulfa salve because of the heat rash. And once in a while, the mosquitoes, you know, it's fascinating about mosquitoes. We grew a race of mosquitoes in the swamp that loved sulfa. And they'd smell it. You could hear them. Whenever a new case of sulfa would come in, they'd come in great droning crowds. So that's the kind of life it was. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month after month after month. And then one day, one fantastic day, this first lieutenant, we got this new first lieutenant who was bucking for captain. You could see it all the way, you know, because nobody ever wore pressed fatigues in a swamp. And by the way, that's bad news. Whenever you run into a first sergeant or an officer that wears pressed fatigues, look out. This is a bad scene. And so here's this guy. He's right out of Fort Benning, you know. Sharp. He's got these bright, shiny new silver bars. He's got the big crosses, we had the big cross signal corps flags. And he's got this bright shining, the bushy tail. And we're all standing there, this old grizzled Company K. And we're watching him, see. He's a new officer. And he's walking around in front of us. He says, "Men, I detect a noticeable lack of morale." He detects a noticeable lack of morale. And our eyes had ceased to be eyes now. They were little gray balls of silly putty. There's a certain point in boredom when you can't even see anything anymore. You just sort of stand there. And we began to stir a little bit. I could feel the company all around me. Gasser, for the first time in 8 months, is standing up straight a little bit. You can see him, see. He spent 4 months just looking at the ground, walking around. And over here to my right, I feel Edwards. Edwards is shifting a little bit, see. And behind me, I hear Metropolis. Metropolis developed a ventriloquistic trick. Whenever there was an officer saying something silly, he would throw his board yards into the Lister bag. And he made the sound of a chicken laying an egg. Now, that has a very special Army connotation. You'll have to explain that. Yeah, it was a great sound, and it sounded like a chicken laying a square egg. Yeah, that has very special meaning. So you'd here we're all standing, and this officer's walking around. He says, "I detect, man," he hitches up his pants, "a noticeable lack of morale." And then off in the distance you hear, he says, "Damn chickens." And you see Metropolis standing there. Metropolis had this little bowling ball that he kept under his belt. He was one of these guys who all the time at attention was like this. I remember one time Metropolis standing at attention. This is a true story. He's standing at attention like this, and the officer walks around. He says, "Pull in the gut there." Bang! And he hits him in the gut. He says, "Pull in your gut." Metropolis goes, and Metropolis goes like this. It just went out, and the back end comes out, the front end goes in, the guy walks, and now the guy's in back. He says, "Pull in your behind." Metropolis stands like this. So that's the little scene going on in the Army. See, we've got this little company, and we all work together like a well-oiled bear trap. We're working together, see, and our enemy was by the way, speaking of enemies, what radio station is this? Come on, hit it. And what town are we festering in? Oh. We start down like this, see. He's smiling. So I want to ask a question, man. And you see these bars glinting in this tropical sun. And off in the distance you hear the sound of this big alligator. He turns around. He says, "I'll be right back, Sergeant." Oh, yeah, we had a first sergeant who sounded exactly like an alligator in heat. Oh, yeah, in fact, I remember one night, at 3 o'clock in the morning one night, I remember this GI, I'm laying in a sack, you sleep at night. I went for a whole year and a half without sleeping once. And I'm lying in there, and I'm just covered with sulfa salve. And I'm sweating. And I can hear the lizards crawling on the top of the tent. And I can hear the mosquitoes pounding on my mosquito bar. "Let me in!" Come on, end it all. Come on, let me in. You can just hear it, see, and the bugs fly. I'll tell you one true story one night, one little fantastic moment of humor in the Army. We're all lying in this tent. There's about, these 8-men tents, square tents. And all of a sudden we hear this sound. All of us are lying there. It's about 5 minutes after lights out, see. And a couple of guys are talking a little bit, and then there's silence falls. And the moon is hanging overhead. And suddenly this sound, it goes, something is flying around the tent. It weighs 9 pounds. Yeah, I'm telling you, it goes, and I hear this guy says, "Who's building model airplanes?" And with that, one of the guys jumps up and he turns on this light. He's got a flashlight, and I tell you, there was a bug. It had a wingspan of 9 inches. And I'm serious, it had a funny-looking face. It looked kind of like Roosevelt. It had a face like FDR, you know, and it just sort of flew over us, you know. And somebody says, kill him, kill him. You know, he's the guy that sent us all these messages, you know. Kill him. And it just flew right on out. And I've never seen that bug ever recorded. I've never seen it in world books or anything. So that's the kind of life we were living, see. We're now standing in line. The officer says, I detect noticeable lack of morale. And men, we're going to do something about it. He turns, a stage pause. I can see him counting the beats. 1, 2, 3. How many ball players are there in this company? Ball players. No, ball players. He sees the question. And then he says, yep, men, we are going to build a ball diamond. And all of a sudden, there was this great sense of joy in the company. You know, everybody, you just feel it, see? And Gasser says, yeah, there's a catch. I could hear. We couldn't believe it. We're going to build a ballpark. And 20 minutes later, we're all in these trucks, see? And we've got our shorts on. We're carrying shovels and picks, axes. And we're going out into the boondocks, and there was a great big area out there that was nothing but sand, surrounded by palm trees. And we started to work under that hot, boiling sun. We're building a ball diamond. We're going to have something that's our own. It's going to be our place, see? And nobody had ever been in that area for years. We never saw a human being there. We're going to have our own little ball diamond. We're chopping away, chopping. The next day, we're working more. The day after that, we work, and we're sweating. The temperature's 150 degrees. But there was joy in Company K. And this officer kept walking around. He said, I think we ought to have second base right out there. Second base. And you say, second base. And you see yourself sliding in, you know. Second base. Boy, we're building a diamond. We worked 16 days under this fantastic, broiling, incredible sun on our off hours. In between times, we ran that damn radar set. Or we laid there and fought the mosquitoes. And we would never sleep. We'd work. And then one day, what a day. There it was. There we had taken some flour sacks from the mess hall, and we put this white chalk all over them. We had first base, second base, third base, home plate. And we even built little stands out of planks, you know, where guys could sit and watch, the guys from the second platoon, you know. And in the outfield, we had cut all the palmettos down. And now here was this little island of joy, right in the middle of the swamp, nothing but trees, and this little tiny road which we built 15 miles back to our radar camp. It was the most remote little ball diamond I ever saw in my life. Beautiful little thing. And there we were. But the next morning, after our ball diamond was done, the officer's standing out in front of us. He said, all right, men, and now I got a surprise for you. Gasser, go on back to the supply room and talk to Sergeant Schmidt. Tell him to get that big box. And Gasser cuts out. 10 minutes later, he's back with another guy, and they're carrying the box. They open it up, and there they were. 24 softball bats, a big bag of brand new white softballs, about 15 gloves, a mask, the whole panoply of joy, fun, and games. I mean, you can't imagine how that looks in the Army after you've been slogging along, fighting the mosquitoes, fighting that crummy captain for years, fighting that radar set. Now we've got a little baseball game. And the first lieutenant says, all right, men, and now to celebrate, I'm going to give you guys the afternoon off. How about choosing up sides on a ball game? Fantastic. Choosing up sides. And so the corporal of the first platoon and the corporal of the second platoon, they're choosing up. Incidentally, you know those great moments of choosing up? This is something that I'll bet there are 25 men in this crowd get a sick feeling in the gut. when that word, let's choose up. is heard, and you see them hands. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is something girls never go through. I want to tell you how it works. In every neighborhood, there's two guys. One guy's named Mike. There's another guy named Al. Or maybe his name is Chris. These are the two guys who do the choosing. They are very different from the guys who get chosen. And they're always like this, forever, standing at a ballpark. All right, okay, Mike, here comes the bat. And Mike catches it, see? And they go like this. And all the rest of the guys are standing around, looking, see? These two guys are choosing up. And finally, this one guy goes, chicken claws! And Mike says, oh, come on, no fair, chicken claws. And Al says, chicken claws. And Al is there's always one guy that's a little notch ahead of the other one. Al's got the chicken claws. This is the great chicken-clawed chooser. Have you ever had the feeling that God himself is a great chicken-clawed chooser? Oh, yeah, it's luck and it's fate. He's got like this. All right, chicken claws. And then they drop the bat. They step back. Al looks over the crowd. And here are all the boys in the neighborhood, see. Immediately he says, okay, Howie. Howie is always first chosen. Howie never chooses. He is always first chosen. This long, lanky kid, you know. Howie steps over like this. Somebody says, okay, Charlie. All right, Freddie, Mac. Down the line it goes until there are just 3 guys left. 3 guys left. Harvey? Here's little Harvey. He's trying to look tall, see? There's Harvey, and there's Martin, and there's Irv. And Al looks over at him, and he says, okay, if you take Harvey, I'll take Martin and Irv. And here you are, you're Harvey. And here, can you imagine being Irv? He's the second man on a throw-in deal. Yeah, and there's plenty of Irvings right here. Yeah, and 10 seconds later, Irving is out in right field. By the way, there is a rule in this game. Everybody's out if they hit it to right field. So he's out in the right field, up to his neck in boondocks, and he never gets a ball out there. And there's that terrible fear that all men have. See, because girls don't choose up quite like that. There's the fear that Irvings of the world have, and that is, it's a kind of a double-edged thing. As he's out in right field, he looks down there and he says to himself, come on, hit one out here. Come on, hit one. Come on, hit one to me. He can see himself making this leaping catch. And then there's that other thing that keeps saying, oh, no, don't hit one at me. Oh, no. And then that awful moment when that ball is hit and it's coming right down at him. And he's circling around. That's the fear of the Irvings who are never chosen of the world. That one day a ball will be hit in their direction. You know, can you imagine this guy standing? How many of you know the guys that stand around next to the water cooler and they say, oh, that Johnson. Oh, that silly fathead. Why, any idiot knows what to do in Vietnam. Ah, look, all he's got to do is pick up the phone. He calls McNamara. He goes over to the UN. Blah, blah, blah. And hock a regular conk. Blah, blah, blah. He's got it all figured out. And can you imagine the moment when he goes back to his office, see, and he sits down at the desk. All of a sudden, he picks it up. He says, yeah, Bullard here. Who? The White House? I didn't order no hamburgers. White House? I thought you said White Castle, yeah. White House? Who? Who's on the phone? Who? Put him on. Yeah, this is Charlie Bullard. Yeah, Charles J. Bullard. Are you sure you got the right number? You what? You heard about what I said next to the water cooler? And you've been having a cabinet meeting about it? And you want me to come and run the show? Well, wait a minute, I got to ask my wife. Yeah, that's that terrible moment of suddenly being called, see? Well, here we are choosing up sides, playing the first platoon And the second platoon, up it goes like that. And we start choosing. Okay, Gasser. Edwards. I'll take you. Metropolis. Yeah. And half an hour later, oh, what a scene. I must describe the scene for you. We ride out in this troop carrier. And it was the first time I ever heard Company K sing. And we are singing, off we go, into the wild blue yonder, flying high. Except those were not the exact lyrics. You see, the Signal Corps had its own version of that song. And we're singing that song, and we arrive at the ballpark. We pour out of the truck. And we got our gloves. Guys got the bats. And everybody is getting ready to go out to their positions. I'm going to play third base. Remember that, I'm third base, see. So I go out to third base, I stand out there. The sun is beating down. Gasser is up at bat. And all of a sudden, Gasser steps back and he says, boy, is it ever hot. Sure is hot. Listen, you guys, would any of you guys care if I take my pants off? It's hot. Okay. And within 10 seconds, it was a ball game like you've never seen in your life. There were 18 guys, and all you could hear was the rattle of dog tags. That's all, you know. And, oh, what a great ball game. You know, we're out there, and the sun is beating down. It was fantastic. We're sliding in the second, you know, and you get up, and you got the sand all over, and you're in that sulfur salve, and you get up and you lead off first, you know. It was a ball game. The first ball game I ever saw played absolutely stark naked with nothing. Each guy had nothing on but GI shoes and dog tags. Great, you know, we're having a wild time. You know, guys are swinging, you know. You ought to see an outfielder running stark naked. You know. He makes this wild leap, you know. Oh, it was a great ball game. We're playing out there. We get deeply involved. The score is 4-3. It's going into the last of the seventh inning. And I'm standing out there. We're 4,000 miles away from civilization. There's nobody ever out here, see. And I'm standing at third base. And all of a sudden, I notice going through the trees, I see this green staff car. It's a green staff car. And it's going through the trees. I figure, well, it's the first lieutenant come to see the ball game, see. And I see him coming along like this. The staff car makes a big turn, pulls up, and stops 15 feet from third base in the sand. And I'm standing there. I got the glove, you know. Over here is Gary. He's moving back. He's playing shortstop. See? I glance over here at the staff. I look back. I can't believe it. Here is this fantastically beautiful 18-year-old blonde. It's a chick. And there I'm standing, see? I've got my feelers mitt, you know? What a terrible moment at third base. I'll tell you. I start moving away like this, see, and I see this girl, and I see sitting next to her, I see this white-haired man. He's looking out. His face is ashen. He's got that pale look, and I see these two eyeballs. These eyeballs are made out of blood. They're looking, see, like that. And then, and only then did I notice, count them, 3 big, shiny, silver stars. Stars. Why, do you know that in Company K, generals were mythological figures? I mean, they were like Prometheus. I mean, we heard about generals. The biggest thing we ever saw was a captain. And he was 5'3". I'm serious. And here was, I couldn't believe it. I think, at the first moment, I'll tell you the truth, I looked over there and I saw this guy sitting there, and I thought, I'm serious, I thought it was a mirage. 3 stars. And right on his bumper is this big red license plate. Boom, boom, boom. 3 stars. I can't believe it. I'm standing at third base, and what do you do? I look over there, and I see this guy, he's looking out, and his chauffeur, there's this staff sergeant sitting there, and he's got this absolutely impassive face. He's looking right at me. And I see this chick. She's going... all of a sudden, this was some fantastic dream she was having, you know. She's looking. I look at her. She looks at me. I said, and here Gasser, he doesn't know what's going on yet. He's running around. Hey, come on, let's go, you know. I said, Gasser. I said, Gasser. And I see Edwards over at second base, you know. Edwards is walking around, you know. He's, hey, come on, let's go. And I said, Gasser, look at what's to my right. And Gasser says, oh, he says, you watch to the right, I'll take the balls here to the left. I says, Gasser, look. And Gasser looks, and he says, no. Oh, my God. He says, the heat's getting me. I says, no, Gasser, that ain't what's going to get you. It ain't going to be the heat. And at that instant, you know, the whole ballpark, all of a sudden, the entire ball, the whole game, it sort of stood in midair. It was like a fly caught in amber. The outfielders are paused. The batter's up there. That's kind of embarrassing. And you don't know whether to salute. What are you all standing? So there was just that terrible pregnant moment, and then the staff car backs up, turns around, and boom, he's gone. And all 18 of us stood there. And I'm telling you, we stood there. It's just a fantastic moment. And the corporal who's playing first base, he says, form a column of twos. It's the only thing you can think of. That's the first thing the corporals think of when they're trapped, you know. Form a column of twos, and then we're all standing like this. Ball glove, dog tags, shoes. The sun. Our beautiful little ballpark spread out around us. And the corporal says, all right, attention. We stand. He says, get dressed by the numbers. Up. We're getting dressed, putting on our pants. And we rode back in absolute silence. And you know, it was one of those moments we could not believe that we had seen what we saw. We couldn't believe it even yet. And this chick couldn't believe what she... You know, and we get back to the company area, and oh, you know, there's that you know how when you're a kid, you know that feeling when you arrive at home, and you know that there's bad news? You just know it in your gut, you know. And this weapons carrier drove right down the company street, and it was silence. And all you could hear was the sound of our radar set. There wasn't an officer on the street. That's what we figured. Maybe we made it clean. Maybe word hasn't gotten back. Maybe it was a German spy. You know, and so we're in the barracks real quick. We're getting dressed, you know. We're even putting on our long johns. Getting all dressed frantically, you know, like that. And then the whistle started to blow. You know that awful sound of whistles blowing? I've often thought I would love to do this. I would like to walk along some very official street. Let's say like, Park Avenue at 3 o'clock in the morning with a whistle. And start blowing it, you know, one of those big bronze whistles. Wah! Wah! And holler up at the whole crowd. All right, you guys, fall out. Time for a medical inspection. The uniform will be helmet liners, raincoats only. Fall out right now immediately. The doctor's already here. Let's go. You'll have to explain that to her. I could see 400 vice presidents along Park Avenue all of a sudden wake up with that scared feeling. Oh, no. You know, 5 minutes later, they're lined up on Park Avenue. And I'm the doctor walking along saying, cough. You know, it's one of those moments that we're getting dressed frantically. Boy, we're getting our clothes on. And now we're lined up. And you should have seen this scene. You know, it sounds almost like a mythological tale, but it is absolutely, everything I've told you is absolute gold-plated truth. This officer is white, the first lieutenant. And he's standing out there waiting for us. And the first sergeant, Kowalski, he's got the clipboard. Over here is the duty corporal. And the first time I'd ever seen our duty corporal in clean suntans. You could see something has hit the fan. And it ain't silly putty, I'll tell you. You know, he's standing there and they're just that white face. And he calls roll. Hey, he, blah, 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 we're going, hey, he, ho, hoo, ha, hoo, hoo. Attention! He turns to the first lieutenant. We just didn't have that kind of company. Nobody saluted in our company. I mean, nobody did all this stuff. He goes, turns back with that concrete face, and the first lieutenant steps around. Men, I hear you played a ball game today. Now, I don't want any smart talk. I don't mean that as a double entendre. Nobody knew what a double entendre was. We figured it was another kind of maneuver, you know, sort of a half-right face, you know. One of them Queen Anne drill tricky things they do in the Coldstream Guards, you know. He said, I don't want any smart talk here. Tomorrow morning, we are going back out in the boondocks with our shovels, with our picks, and we're going to cover up that damn ball field. General Somerville. Do you know who he was? He was the commanding general of the entire Signal Corps. That is roughly analogous to saying General Eisenhower. I couldn't believe that. General Somerville, this afternoon, paid a visit of inspection. And he wanted to see what we were doing for the morale of Company K. What you were doing for the morale, I did not have exactly in mind. General Somerville was there. Any of you guys want to say anything? You know, about 50 guys wanted to say, yeah, what's your phone number? You know, we're all standing there. It's all right. I just want to tell you one thing. You have put a black mark on my record. There will be no more ball games in Company K. I have other ideas for morale. Any questions? Who's standing there? It was the saddest-looking ball team you ever saw in your life. All standing there, see? Just like that. And then he said finally, all right, company, dismissed. And 5 minutes later, we're sitting in the tents, in the barracks. You could hear the mosquitoes. You could feel the sun beating down on the top of that canvas. You could hear the radar set going, "Arr." We just sat and scratched. Gasser says, you know, I'll bet if I told somebody, they wouldn't believe it. I said, that's right, Gasser. I don't believe it. And Edward's sitting over there. Edward says, it ain't possible. He said, I never saw nothing like this in the movies about the Army. You never see Errol Flynn and Don Amici playing ball like that. You know, with Frank Sinatra catching. And we're all playing this scene. And you know, I did not realize. We all went on at the various parts. About 6 weeks later, our company was busted up. We went drifting off into the darkness. Company K was no longer. The people who had taken part in this historic ball game, in the middle of this gigantic battle against tyranny. It was what we were doing to fight Hitler. You know? And after a while, I got so that I didn't quite believe that this had happened to me. It sounded so funny. And I remember one night sitting with this girl. I'm out of the Army about 2 weeks. And she says, anything funny happen to you in the Army? I mean, I hear a lot of funny things. And I says, well, yeah. You know, there was this one time when we had this ball game, see? and the waiter brought the menu. And I suddenly realized I couldn't tell her about this. It was such a special thing, and I didn't really believe that it happened. And about a month after I got out of the Army, I'm in the VA. I'm about to go into the 5220 Club. Any of you know this? This was the greatest thing that ever happened to Western man. The 5220 Club was this. The Army paid you $20 a week for 52 weeks for getting adjusted. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still haven't quite made it. And so we were walking around, you know, with our field jackets, and one day I'm at the VA. It's the darndest thing. I'm at the VA, and I'm sitting there. I still got my field jacket on, see? And I got the boots, you know, the whole bit. And you could see the place where my stripes were torn off. Yeah, I'm sitting there. And I suddenly see this other guy come in. He's got a field jacket. He's got a pair of boots. He walks in. He sits down on the bench. And he looks familiar. I look at him. He looks vaguely familiar. And then I can't believe it. It's the first lieutenant. You never expect to see the first lieutenant in the VA, you know, looking for a handout. You know, I'm sitting there, here I am, corporal, see? And here's the first lieutenant. And I finally had to say it, see? I turned to him. I said, and you know, we're sitting there, and I could see where, you know, there were little threads on his field jacket, you know. We're both sitting there, and there's about 9 other guys. And then I said to him, did you ever make captain? He looks forward, and he says, what'd you say? What was that, Mac? I said, did you ever make captain? He looked at me for a long look. He says, you're a third baseman. He says, you're a third baseman. I said, that's right. I said, did you ever make captain? There's a long, pregnant pause. No. I settled back. He said, did you ever make buck sergeant? No. Another long, pregnant pause. And he says, whatever happened to that Klutz gasser? Did he ever make PFC? I said, no. I think he might have got it as an honor after he got out. Honorary PFC. Another long, pregnant pause, and I said, gee, that was a great game. And he says, yeah. He said, it cost me my captaincy. I says, yeah, it cost me a buck sergeancy. Cost Gasser his PFC. And we sat there for a long moment. He says, I wonder if it ever cost that chick any sleep. She's probably been dreaming about that for years, you know. And I sat back and I says, I've been thinking about that once in a while myself. And he says, yep, I'll bet that was the greatest ball game she ever saw. I says, yep. And then there was another long pause, and he says, I'll bet nobody believes it if you ever tell them the story. I says, yep. I tried to tell it to a chick the other night. He said, well, I tried to tell it to my mother. He said, I just couldn't, you know. I says, yep. And I never saw him again. And let me tell you the funny thing. The last time I told this story, 5 minutes after I went off the air, the phone rang. And there's this voice at the other end. It's a female voice. And she says, hello? And I says, hello. She says, were you the third baseman? Somewhere she's out there. We'll be back next week at the same time.